بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. We said that sometimes discussion about knowledge is discussed in the discussion about existence, because one of the classifications of wujud is to divide wujud into wujud ذهني and wujud عيني, mental existence and external or objective existence. And because mental existence is about knowledge, so they mention something about knowledge here and also in other places in philosophy. For this reason, as a follow-up for the discussion about وجود ذهنی, Hakim Sabzewari rahmatullah alayh has here something about اتحاد العاقل والمعقول, the unity between the one who understands and what is understood. Although this discussion can be discussed separately. For example, in al-Hikam, this was the 11th section, al-Marhalatul Hadi Ashara, just before 12, which was about Ilahiyat bil-Ma'na al-Akhas. We had this discussion. But here, because of, as a follow-up for the discussion about wujud al-Zihni, we have this discussion. وحدتها مع عاقل مقولة. Please be very careful not to make mistake between معقول and مقول. معقول means something which is understood, or sometimes we translate as intelligible. معقول. مقول means what is said. And here he means literally, of course. Maqul, it's also technically used for categories, because it is ma yuqala fi jawab mahu. We have 10 maqulat ash, 10 categories, but that is maqul, not ma'qul. Ma'qul means intelligible, which is divided to ula and thani into philosophy ones, falsafi, or logical ones, mantaqi. So Hakim Sabzewari rahmatullah alayhi says وحدتها مع عاقل مقولة, unity of this image, it is surat ma'quleh, this thing which is understood, with the one who understands, has been said. It means that some philosophers have said that there is wahda, there is unity between عاقل and معقول. So now we have a discussion about this. اتحاد العاقل والمعقول. A more expanded version of this discussion is اتحاد العقل والعاقل والمعقول. But here we start with اتحاد العاقل والمعقول. Ayatummah Mutahhari says this discussion has a long history in philosophy, and it seems that the first person who introduced this theory of unity of عاقل و معقول was a person called Farforius. This person lived in the era of, according to the footnote, although it seems to be a lack of, maybe there's a problem here, it says 232 to 403. but it should be less because it becomes more than 170 years, so must be a mistake somewhere, one of these digits, and I didn't check. In any case, he lived in the time after, you know, Isa alayhi salam. He was a follower of Aristotle and great philosophers before Islam, and he had this idea that some people were very happy with it, like Farabi and Mulla Sadra, and some people like Ibn Sina were very critical of this. It is interesting that how there were differences of opinions about this. Someone put in the chat that in yours says 232 to 304. Okay, that seems correct, because in mine says 403. 403 cannot be correct. Okay, so he developed and presented an idea about the unity of عاقل and معقول, which some people like Farabi and Mulla Sadra welcomed, liked it, but Ibn Sina was against it. In order to understand this idea, Ayatummah Mutahhari makes few points that they are very important. Some of them are already known to us. We have discussed them before. Some of them are new, so you have to study them in other books or remember it now. Number one, whenever we understand something, we can make three aspects distinct from each other. We can distinguish between three things: the knower, what is known, and knowledge. Al-Mudrik, the one who understands, the knower. You can say al-Aqil, al-Mudrik, number one. Number two, what is known, what is the subject, Mudrak. Number three, the condition that this person, the knower, has about that ma'lum, which is ilm, knowledge. So knowledge, knower, and what is known. Alim, ma'lum, ilm. Aqil, ma'qul, aql. Mudrik, mudrak, idrak. So there are three dimensions. For example, if I have knowledge of a space, so the concept of a space, fada, in my mind, or anything, elephant, whatever. So I am the knower. I have a condition of knowledge that if someone else doesn't have this, they lack, they are jahil. And there is elephant or a space which is known to me. So there are three aspects. Of course, you have to know that elephant or a space is not known to you directly. Elephant is al-ma'lumu bil-araz, is known in a secondary way. Al-ma'lumu bil-zat is the image of elephant or a space. So I am mudrik or aqil, and the image that I have in my mind from that elephant or a space is my ma'lum, what is known to me. And since it is for me, it is ilm for me. So there are three things that, after careful consideration, you think they are very close to each other. If ma'lum was outside, then you could say, okay, that is something else, and then maybe relation between me and something which is outside. But the ilm and ma'lum both are inside. Second point, for us it's very difficult to think that we can have two concepts with two meanings but one reality. We tend to think that if there are two names, two concepts, there must be two realities. So if we have عاقل, عاقل, معقول, then we should have more than one reality. Otherwise, why we are saying this is معقول, that is عاقل, this is عاقل? So we tend to consider these things as separate entities, separate things. But philosophical discussions about mind, please remember, this is something very important, that if you want to understand philosophy, you have to learn and master how human mind works. It's very important. Even in ilm al-usul, in many other sciences also this helps, to know how human mind works. Part of it we learn in logic, part of it we learn in philosophy, part of it we learn in usul, part of it we learn in philosophical psychology. Philosophical psychology. علم النفس فلسفی. Human mind has this capability that can bring things that are different under one common umbrella, can bring unity into things which are separate. So it's possible that at the same time that we use different concepts, we can find something common between them. Or sometimes it's something common, but we can distinguish between different dimensions. Point 3. The difference between Ibn Sina and people like Mulla Sadra and Farabi about اتحاد العاقل والمعقول does not apply to human being understanding himself. Our understanding of ourselves is not that much controversial. It's like understanding space, understanding elephant, understanding something else, that questions and different opinions emerge and arise. For sure, we can have ilm huduri about ourselves, and this is not controversial. So I am present for myself, so I am knowledge because I am present. I am ma'lum, and I am alim, and I am ilm because my presence for myself is like my presence, and my presence is my existence. So ilm, alim, and ma'lum are the same. So here there's not, there's no controversy. Ibn Sina himself believes that when we have knowledge about ourselves, عاقل, معقول, عقل are the same. He has a famous argument for immateriality of the soul. In order to prove immateriality of the soul, is the argument of suspended man in the air or space. إنسان معلق في الفضاء. If someone is put in the space in the way that neither light, nor heat, nor noise, nor hunger, need for going to toilet, nothing distracts. And this person is mu'allaq, so he's not sitting somewhere or standing somewhere so that would feel the chair, etc., the air temperature, wind, for example. So suppose there's a human being and nothing else affecting him, no environment. He's mu'allaq fil fada, is hanging and suspended in the air. Still this person has understanding of himself. Therefore, it shows that our understanding of ourselves is not separable from us, and this can be only ilm huduri, and also about immaterial soul, because nothing is taking his attention away from soul towards the body. If it is cold or hot, my body receives lots of attention from me. If I'm hungry, the same. If I am, I don't know, thirsty, the same. But if we manage to reduce to almost zero the signals and pulse coming from body to the nerves, no distraction, nothing, then we are in a good position to pay attention to nafs itself. So Ibn Sina has no issue with unity of aql, aqil and ma'qul when it comes to our knowledge of ourselves, knowledge about one's essence. The problem is about knowledge about other things, knowledge of other things. The fourth point, after we understand something, what happens? Ayatummah Mutahhari says there is no doubt that when we start to understand something, to conceive something that we didn't before, a kind of relation would be made between me and that thing. That thing is known to me, so there's a relation, and that is knowledge between me and that thing. And this relation, unlike what some people, in the past we said, some people have said in the discussion about wujud ذهنی, that it's just idafa, something external, and I am separate and far, and then there is a zafa. Like, for example, now my hand is above, for example, the desk or above a computer. This is not making change to computer just by itself, I mean. If I have it top of it or bottom of it, on right side, left side, there is a relation, but this relation is not substantial, is not, affecting. So some people thought ilm is just idafa, nisba, relation, but we say no. There's a real relation which makes a difference between alim and jahil. So there must be something inside me. I can witness that knowledge is inside. Knowledge is not outside or just idafa. When I come to know and learn something, something is happening in me. And the relation between it and me is not just that I am the container. Sometimes you put, for example, some seeds or some beans or wheat, for example, in a container, in a bowl. These seeds existed before, can exist afterwards, and just now it has happened that they are inside this container. But our knowledge, our mental images are not like this. They cannot go to any other container. So our relation with them is not like relation between beans or wheat with the container. We are independent from our mental images, but our mental images are totally dependent on us, and they cannot be shifted or transferred like beans or seeds from one container to the other container. In other words, in technical words, وجودش فی ذاته با وجودش برای نفس یکیست. Existence of this in itself, this image, its existence for itself and by itself is something. But the same existence is also for me. There are not two beings, two types of existence. It exists for itself and it exists for me. It's like araz and jawhar. وجود العرض في نفسه. عرض is not وجود رابط, it's وجود في نفسه, but it's لغیره, for something else. A very good example, so it's not like putting some seeds inside the ball, is example of haraka, motion. Suppose something is moving. For example, a person was just stopping somewhere and then it starts moving. Haraka or motion for this person is not independent, because haraka cannot exist without this person. It's not like seeds or beans that we put from one place to another place. Our mental images are like haraka for mutaharrik, a motion for something which moves, cannot be separated. If you separate haraka from mutaharrik, finished, haraka finished. Our mental images cannot exist independent from us. So he says, shak nist. There is no doubt. It's a very important sentence. که ارتباط عاقل و معقول شبیه ارتباط جسم و مکان اور گندم و ظرف در مثالی که ذکر شد نیست. So there is no doubt that the relation between عاقل and معقول, the knower and what is known, is not like the relation between a physical object and a space, or between wheat and the container. وجود معقول فی نفسه عین اضافه و ارتباط این معقول است با نفس. Existence of what is known in itself is at the same time existence for the knower, because it exists for the knower. It's the knowledge of the knower. Then there's a discussion here. Is it about, like, haraka, as we said, or it is, more than that? That's another issue. But for sure, it is not like just putting some beans in a container and then removing it. The next introduction is that when the relation between two things is not like physical object and its space, its place, then we can have two types. Sometimes, but before I say this, let me remind you. You remember the difference between ماده و صورت and جنس و فصل. We had this discussion in بداية الحكمة and نهاية الحكمة. Also the difference between, for example, ماده و صورت, which are both substances, and جوهر and عرض, which is substance and accident. We had this in philosophy بداية الحكمة before. To remind you, maybe it's enough to say that ماده و صورت are possible to be used as subject and predicate. لا بشرط. Sorry, جنس و فصل. جنس و فصل can be subject and predicate. But ماده and صورت are taken as ماهیت, which is complete, and they cannot be used as predicate and subject for each other. You cannot put ماده as موضوع and صورة as محمول. But جنس و فصل, yes. In جنس و فصل, there is no تعین, therefore جنس can be used as subject for this, but in ماده و صورت is different. So we have to remember that sometimes things are araz, accidents, sometimes they are surah. Surah looks like araz, but surah is jawhari. It's not araz. Surah. Like surat for human beings. Nafs natiqe, please listen very carefully. Nafs natiqe is surat for human beings. And natiq is fasl. Natiq, you can say Zaydun natiqun or hadal haywan natiqun. But nafs natiqe is different from haywaniya as madde, which is madde thanawiya, of course. The next point is that what is me? Ayatummah Mutahhari says Zat nafs, the essence of self. That we say me or I is عاقل, understands the mental image or intelligibles. So nafs is عاقل بالذات, not عاقل بالعرض. Means we really understand ourselves, and it's me, not something else that, you know, I say, okay, by implication I know. So you cannot say ilm or surat maqule belongs to another alim. This is only me. If in me you want to consider another alim, then in that alim also can consider another alim. It's not going to work. So it is for me. Zat nafs عاقل صورت معقول است. The essence of our soul or self is the knower of the intelligible. The next thing is that we have two types of tarkib. Combination can be haqiqi or i'tibari. Haqiqi means real. Means really something new has come out of this combination. 2, 3 more things are combined, and then we really have a unity. But i'tibari means nothing has changed. We just consider, for example, if we say we have a group of 10 writers, so we have a society of the writers in the city. But this is i'tibari. 10 writers have not become 11 or, you know, something extra to them. They are the same people, just we say, okay, you are a group. And of course this i'tibariyat can then be the foundation or basis or ground for real things. I say, okay, we want to give this money to members of this society to support them. It's like ownership, melkiya. Melkiya is i'tibari, but lots of implications are there for this i'tibari. So i'tibari doesn't mean absurd or useless. No, it means that there is no real change here, and we assume that. So التركيب إما حقيقي أو اعتباري. But حقيقي is also possible to be اتحادي or انضمامي. اتحادي is that when two things become somehow united and identical. انضمامي means they are put next to each other. Ayatummah Mutahhari says, maybe you say, I can understand ترکیب اتحادی, that two things become a third thing, like oxygen and nitrogen, for example, and hydrogen and carbon. You know, you can make lots of things with these elements, and a new thing can be created. But what about انضمامی? انضمامی means putting next to each other. Is this also really ترکیب حقیقی? And he says, yes, this is also حقیقی, because they are متحصل الذات, but when they exist with each other, they have some interactions, like madde and surah. Madde and surah are not merging in each other, but they are also interacting with each other. So we don't need to have them dissolved and just one new thing coming, but at the same time we can have اتحاد. The next point is two things which are بالفعل, which are actual, cannot unite with each other and form a unity. For example, he says, if we suppose Aleph is بالفعل موجود, actually exists, it is متحصل because it's existing by itself, so it's متحصل means its mahiyya is complete, nothing is missing. B is also بالفعل موجود, actually exists, and it's متحصل. So we have two things, like pen and pencil, for example. If I have a pen and pencil, then how can they unite with each other? You put them next to each other, one on the top of the other, but they don't get متحد, they don't get united. Wahdat or unity happens if at least one party is not بالفعل or متحصل and happens for the other or depends on the other, comes on the top of the other. The next point is, I try to finish these points today, and inshallah tomorrow we go to the arguments. The ninth point is that human beings have different types of idrak, understanding, different types of knowledge. Philosophers mention 4 types of knowledge or understanding. 1, al-idrak al-hissi. Number 2, al-idrak al-khayali. 3, al-idrak al-wahmi. 4, al-idrak al-aqli. Hissi is obvious, like seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, hearing. We understand through our senses many things. Khiyali, it's perhaps referring, because khiyal is used in different senses, but perhaps here refers to where we store the images that we have taken from Hess, and maybe also work on them in a creative way. You know, we make an image of human being with 7 heads, for example. It's not really such a thing existing, but we can imagine this. And wahmi is something which is juz'i but not mahsus. In Mantiq Muzaffar you had this. For example, a specific happiness or joy that someone is feeling in himself. It's not hissi because we don't have any hiss, eye, nose that can detect joy or pain. Yes, the signs of it, for example, the color of the face changes, I can see. The blood pressure goes high or low, I can sense if I hold on to his hand. I hold his hand. But I cannot see joy. This is wahm. Or a kind of enmity that, for example, can be between cat and dog. Idrak aqli, intellectual idrak, which is through concepts and universal concepts. So in the footnote he says this idrak wahmi is not agreed by all, and Mulla Sadra himself doesn't believe that we have qawwaya wahmi, although we have idrak wahmi, but we don't have a special faculty for understanding this. It's falling under aqli. So we have four types of idrak: idrak hissi, al-idrak al-hissi, al-idrak al-khiyali, al-idrak al-wahmi, al-idrak al-aqli. But three types of qawwa or faculty: al-qawwatu al-hissiyya, al-qawwatu al-khiyaliyya, al-qawwatu al-aqliyya. The faculty which is responsible for mahsusat, the faculty for khayaliyat, those things that we imagine, for example, or store from perception, and aqli, intellectual. Although this doesn't mean that there are three different departments or in different places or different persons, because nafs is one unit. Nafs has integrity and it's one unit. As Mulla Sadra says, an-nafsu fi wahdataha kullul quwa. This is the idea of Mulla Sadra that Hakim mentions. So nafs is one but has different abilities, capabilities, faculties, etc. If nafs loses hiss and aql and wahm and khayal, then it's not nafs. Those who believe in the theory of اتحاد عاقل و معقول, they say this theory is true about حاس and محسوس, خيال and متخيل, and عاقل and معقول. Means all the major types of idrak can be said to have unity. عاقل و معقول و عقل, حاس و محسوس و حس, for example. خيال و متخيل و متخيل. They believe that those also can be considered to have unity. So after mentioning these 9 points, introductory important points, then he starts talking about the arguments and theories of those who deny and those who affirm and accept اتحاد العاقل والمعقول. And again I remind you that this is about something other than ourselves, when معقول is something else. This is going to take long and I don't want to also rush, So maybe inshallah we can discuss this tomorrow, and please prepare yourself by reading in advance, those of you who have ability to read in Farsi. Otherwise you can refer to the discussion we had in Bidayah. There is a discussion which is useful, but also in the book of Falsafi Muqaddamati we had this discussion. And one of the key things in this discussion is that this surah that we have of other things, Surat ذهنية, is for me known by itself, is معلوم بالذات, not معلوم بالعرض. معلوم بالعرض is outside. So whether I have ilm huduri or ilm husuli, is always going back to ilm huduri. It needs ilm huduri, because even when it's ilm husuli, the image is known to me directly. I don't have image of image and then image of the image of the image. So this is known to me by ilm huzur, it's present for me. So it doesn't make that much difference whether it is my understanding and knowledge of myself or my understanding of something else, because my understanding of something else is also through my mental image of something else. So the distinction between ilm bil-dhat and ilm by other things, knowledge about other things, is not making difference in this point. So please prepare yourself inshallah, so that tomorrow we can see the arguments for this discussion. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.